headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
Morning, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. How is all this going down? I mean, there are an awful lot of people who tweet me constantly, oh, why are you going on about Partygate? I don't care. I care about the cost of living. I care about this or that. I mean, I care about all those things, and we talk about all those things all the time on the show, NHS backlogs, etc., etc. But a lot of people are still really angry about Partygate and the Prime Minister's subsequent handling of these revelations as they've come out. How damaging has that been for the Prime Minister?
Yeah, I mean, actually, the polling interestingly shows that both those things are kind of true at the same time. A very substantial minority of the population, somewhere around 40%, think that there's too much emphasis on this story, too many people are talking about it, we should be focusing on other more important issues. But at the same time, it's also had quite a big dent on the Prime Minister's support. We've seen his approval ratings fall pretty dramatically, and they're showing no signs of recovering yet. We've seen the Conservatives completely not just lose their lead in the polls, but Labour gain a pretty substantial lead of their own. And particularly when you ask people if they trust the Prime Minister at the moment, hardly anybody is saying that they have any trust in the Prime Minister or trust him to tell
I mean, that's the thing. You could understand, okay, you know, the approval ratings of the Prime Minister plummeting when all those revelations are first coming out, the initial shock and the anger. And then, you know, for the last week, actually, I mean, beginning of last week, it was very much in the news. I would say, I mean, certainly over the weekend, it's very much not been about that. People are talking about other stories, the cost of living crisis, the energy price rise, you know, that very much took over. And yet you've not seen any improvement. It's been very sticky, hasn't it? People are going, I'm really angry and upset about this. And even when the news moves on, people don't stop being angry and upset about it.
So I'm chuckling to myself there because I'm just thinking how sort of interesting it is that we're talking about it being a good thing for the government that the news story has shifted onto energy prices going up, one of the biggest energy prices ever. And I think that's actually kind of the point. What we started to see even before Partygate is the government's approval ratings, Boris Johnson's approval ratings starting to decline for lots of other reasons. You know, they said they were going to raise people's taxes, the economy wasn't necessarily going particularly well there. Then the Partygate stuff happened and it really hit the government's approval ratings. Now, one of the big questions at the moment is, can the government move on from this story, get the Partygate headlines out of the news? But even then, it's got lots of other big problems it's faced. It's no longer completely trusted to run the economy, which has been the key Conservative strength.
That's a fantastic analysis, actually, in terms of the polling and whether or not people think that which party do you think is better at running the country's economy, and which party do you think is a low tax party? And Labour is winning on both those fronts right now, not the Tories. I mean, that is a very serious problem for the Tories, isn't it?
Yeah, and it means that they're going into this pretty harsh crisis where people are really going to be struggling to pay their bills and they're not trusted on some of the key issues of the country. Part of that is probably to do with Partygate. That's dented their reputation on lots of these other issues as well. But I think it will make life very difficult for them in the next few months, even if they somehow manage to move beyond these Partygate stories, which is far from certain.
Yeah, indeed. We're still waiting for that police investigation, the full Sue Gray report, and what knows we have. And again, I do think when we see photographs, I think that really focuses people's minds a lot more. But again, people feel very angry and upset about that because they can remember what they were doing. You know, again, as soon as when I saw May 20th, right, what was I doing? And I knew what I was doing and what I wasn't able to do. And so people remember that. But even this is going to very much become the here and now, isn't it? When we see all those details and more revelations, even though it will be, you know, just a bit more detail, flesh on the bones of a story we already knew, it'll be as people are facing, can I put the heating on? Can I afford it? I'm going to worry about paying the electricity bill, going to the supermarket, having to put stuff back on the shelves because they're worried about it. The mortgage going up with the interest rates, and that's set to go up again, may you expect, over the coming months. And national insurance rise, council tax rise. And, you know, we've got a bit of, you know, the announcement from the Chancellor at the end of last week, you get, you know, a rebate on your energy bills. Yeah, but you're going to have to pay it back, £40 a year over the next few years. £150 off your council tax. I mean, you know, when your council tax is, you know, well over sort of 1,500 quid, hitting 2,000, that's not going to feel like very much to people. And the reality is that people it's going to be very much here and now stuff that they're going to be bothered about when they see that full Partygate report.
Yeah, and look, I don't think that the big issues that we're talking about at the next election are going to be Boris Johnson at parties. No. I think it is going to be a lot more of those important issues that you spoke about.
NHS backlog, yeah.
All of those things. But at the moment, the public, firstly, they aren't convinced that the government has a solution to those problems. But secondly, it does look in the polls like there's a bit of an interaction effect between the two things, because the government, because the Prime Minister has lost so much trust over the issues of parties, the public no longer convinced that they trust him to solve all of those other big issues. And we talk about the distraction that you talked about as well. Lots of people saying it's a distraction, and that's true in the polls. But increasingly, when we're speaking to people, their solution to how we move on from this story isn't by everybody stopping talking about it, but by replacing the Prime Minister. 69% of people in recent polls have said that they think he should resign, and someone someone else should take over instead. So,
and who do they want to take over? Because we're told one of the reasons why backbench MPs aren't moving is not just they think they might lose that vote, and then they've got a Prime Minister limping on. That's the worst case scenario under the rules of the 1922 committee, but also because there isn't an obvious successor. It seems to me there is a very obvious successor in the national polls, and that would be Rishi Sunak. And yet, for Tory party members who would get to have the final say on who of the two candidates pushed through by the parliamentary party would be, it appears to be Liz Truss.
Well, actually, we ran the poll among Conservative Party members, and even they really do quite like Rishi Sunak as well. And we a lot of the polls don't do this, but our Conservative member poll did this very specifically, because you have lots of people who like Liz Truss, lots of people who like Rishi Sunak. But the question is, if they were both on the ballot paper, which of these two people that you like would you vote for? And our poll actually showed that in that situation, Rishi Sunak would win probably by a landslide on current polling numbers. So I think probably more so than we've seen, in most leadership contests, in most challenges, there really is an obvious successor in Rishi Sunak. That's not to say he'll necessarily be good at the job. Lots of people tell pollsters that they like us when they're doing one job, then they get the big job. They see more of him. Maybe they don't like what they see. But at the moment, at least, he's very popular with the public, certainly more popular with the public than the Conservative Party brand is.
That's very interesting. Really good to talk to you, Chris Curtis. Thank you so much for that analysis. Senior researcher at Opinion.
Good talk. Hot talk.
Bold talk. Talk radio.
Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.